to move in this mode so that we could begin the 2013 Lighting the Way program. We could not do it without asking Mike Pratt, president of the Sherman Foundation, to come to the podium to remember our longtime friend and my longtime friend who had the kindest eyes you ever would want to see, my fellow board member, Tony Schulte.
Thank you. I'm Mike Pratt. I'm president of the Sherman Foundation, and it is my enormous pleasure to recognize those twinkling eyes that we love so much of Tony Schulte's. It is so fitting to honor Tony at this event, the Lighting the Way event, because of course he had this enormous commitment to helping incarcerated and formerly incarcerated individuals and their families. That commitment was unwavering, exemplified, as Reverend Wyatt mentioned, by his long service on the Osborne board. But more poignantly, Tony helped conceive this event as a vehicle to primarily raise awareness, because he knew that the work of Osborne, opening up the doors of opportunity, and the stories of its great participants were so compelling. You'll hear from some of those extraordinary people in just a minute, but he trusted, and I trust, that the financial support would follow the awareness and inspiration. It was certainly that awareness and inspiration, as well as a lot of pushing from Tony, gentle but relentless, that kept the Sherman Foundation funding the program for more than 30 years without interruption. Tony served on the board of the Sherman Foundation for 36 years. Our former chairperson, Axel Rosine, introduced Tony to the board in 1976 as, quote, one of the most capable and attractive men in publishing today. That he was, and he remains so. Not just physically attractive, although he was extremely dashing, and people have mentioned those eyes. See, the dark glasses don't give you all the eyes, but trust me on this one. But more than that, Tony attracted you. He drew you in with his intelligence, his gentle laugh, and a joyful commitment to doing right and healing the world. And nothing was closer to his big, big heart than Osborne. So on behalf of his wife, Liz Schulte, his sister, Pat Levinson, and the rest of his wonderful family, thank you for recognizing Tony and for continuing his great work. Thanks.
Good morning. I'm Liz Gaines, Director of the Osborne Association. I want to add my welcome, my appreciation for each of you coming out so early, including our hardworking staff. I think they never went to sleep. Mike, thank you for the words about Tony Schulte. He was actually my favorite board member, sorry, Alfonso, but he came to all of our parties and he danced. We've lost some of our strongest supporters this year, among them Audrey Goldberg and my mother, Debbie Gaines. And while we can never replace any of them, we can build support for what they cared about. 100 years ago, Thomas Mott Osborne walked into Auburn prison and voluntarily spent a week among the men he came to call his brothers. He didn't romanticize them, but he didn't demonize them either. That was his gift. Later, as warden of Sing Sing prison, he asked that question that still haunts us. Shall our prisons be scrap heaps or human repair shops? Out of his vision, the Osborne Association has grown to 20 programs in 3 counties, 20 prisons, 5 jails, reaching over 8,000 people each year. Employment, education, family, treatment services. I'd love to tell you about every one of them and the remarkable people who work at Osborne to deliver those services, but I only have 9 minutes. But in their essence, they're just 20 different doors, all opening on to our commitment to reduce the number of people we send to prison and the length of time that we keep them there, often years or decades beyond any purpose but vengeance. We're at a pivotal moment. The crime rate and the prison population continue to fall in New York, at least to some degree, I think, because of organizations like ours and people like Brian Fisher. The nation's drug czar now avoids the term war on drugs and says addiction is best dealt with by treatment. The folks in D.C. are considering sequestering our growing federal prison system to save money, but they also want to save money by denying food stamps to people with criminal histories. There's a new task force in the House on over-criminalization. Damn, I wish I had thought of that word. Some people believe that the pressure on state budgets and a greater focus on treatment will bring about a lasting reduction in incarceration. But slowing down is not the same as changing direction. Systems don't shift from retribution to reconciliation just because they run out of money, any more than the Stone Age ended because they ran out of stones. You need look no farther than Guantanamo to see what Americans are willing to tolerate. Sitting in this room with you, possibly at your table, is a staff member or a colleague of the Osborne Association who has served 10, 20, or 30 or more years in prison for a crime that was deadly serious and that has led to more self-reflection, regret and remorse, and a greater sense of responsibility than most of us will ever know. And to be clear, no one can make you, hold you responsible, nor can you impose it on another. It's a grace you give yourself, an empowering context that leaves you with a say in the matter of your life. And there are many more like those men and women, transformed and responsible. Maybe your neighbor, maybe the person you see at the movies. And then there are the ones you can't see, still in prison, long past the time when anyone would consider them a threat. Last month, our parole board turned down release for a man I've known for 20 years who's 85 years old, legally blind, in a wheelchair, and has been incarcerated for 33 years. Some years back, he asked me to help him get ready for the board and read his court papers to him because the parole board was going to ask him about his crime and he didn't really remember it. 80 grand a year to keep someone locked up and medicated who can't even remember why he's there? And you're all right with that? I am not. And it isn't because we're not concerned about victims, it's because we are. All too often we justify incarceration by invoking victims whose rights ought to be more broad and more robust than just jail for the person who caused them harm. To me, the most important right is the right to heal. In this world of trauma and torture, of Newtown and Boston, it's a precious right that should be guaranteed to all of us. Personally, I'd be willing to give up the Second Amendment in return for that. One target population for us are the young people who exemplify the observation known in trauma treatment that hurt people hurt people. We're hard on our kids, particularly our black and brown kids who are nearly the exclusive occupants of the beds in our adult and juvenile jails. Unfortunately, the teenage years are not years of discernment, judgment, or responsibility. That's not me saying that, that's neuroscience. And for adolescents who've experienced the trauma associated with loss and poverty and violence, those neurons light up like Christmas trees when they are confronted by something they perceive as a threat. That's probably why just about every state in the country except New York keeps juveniles in the juvenile justice system. And which is why all our evidence-based solutions to fix individuals will only go so far without community-level responses and responsibility for the conditions around violence, loss, and poverty. But working with the Department of Correction, we're engaged in the next best thing, which is to provide to all 16 to 18-year-olds on Rikers Island the Adolescent Behavioral Learning Experience, ABLE, which teaches adolescents to think, grow, and change through cognitive behavioral therapy. What makes this program unique, beside the fact that it's the first program in the United States to be funded through a social impact bond, is the scope and the hope of it. Fortunately, we have awesome partners: the Department of Correction, the Mayor's Office, Goldman Sachs, Bloomberg Philanthropies, MDRC, and Friends of Island Academy. Without all of them, this project would not be possible. If we bring down the staggering recidivism rate by 10 to 20%, our investors stand to profit. But shareholder value is not what gets us up in the morning, or any of our partners, and over the bridge to the world's largest penal colony. Unless we all understand ourselves to be shareholders in these young lives. What drives us is the fundamental premise that drives all of Osborne's work, that people live their lives consistent with the future they see for themselves, not determined by their past. The choices you and I make are perfectly aligned with where we're headed. Your child takes an AP course in high school because it's going to come in handy in the future when he goes to college. One of our young people told me that when he was 12 years old, he spent his time practicing spitting razors out of his mouth because he thought that would come in handy when he landed at Rikers Island. Not if, when. In that context, their lives make perfect sense. Today, he'd run smack into one of our able staff, though, who know from research and experience that if you change your thinking, you change your future. And if these kids change their future, they will change the world. The children of the incarcerated, numbering over 2 million nationally, yet largely invisible, are also a focal point of our work. From them, we've learned two things that are now incontrovertible. One, for children, nothing can replace the relationship with a parent, even if a parent's incarcerated. And two, people who are incarcerated have the right, the responsibility, and the capability of providing the love, support, and encouragement that make a real difference in the lives of their children. If they have the opportunity to do so, they do better, both in prison and when they come out. Some of you have seen it when you accompany children, our kids, as they fly to Albion, New York's largest women's prison, to visit their mothers. Our committed volunteers from St. James Church and Congregation Beth Elohim make these visits possible. But Albion's 400 miles away. We can't do it often. But between live visits, we now offer televisits. Encouraged by Brian Fisher and using video conferencing equipment provided by the department and Cisco, children come to our office and there they see and talk with their mothers and fathers. The potential of this project, when it supplements and does not replace contact visits, is powerful. Supporting families as they make, mend, and maintain their relationships is valuable both for the children and the parents. But more than that, it tells the truth about people who are incarcerated, that they're people who are loved by their children and who love their children in return. I mentioned earlier we're turning scrap heaps into repair shops. I wonder if Thomas Mott Osborne ever imagined it could literally happen, that his vision could carry us this far, but indeed it has. The former Fulton Correctional Facility, now closed, is going to be given to the Osborne Association by the state of New York to turn into a community reentry center. We are deeply grateful to everyone who made this happen. Without the support of virtually every elected official in the Bronx, starting with Senators Gustavo Rivera and Ruth Hassel Thompson, and Assembly Jeff Aubrey, who's actually from Queens, but I'm sure he wishes he was from the Bronx, and ending with Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr., along with our community board and, of course, the governor of the state of New York, this would never have happened. The future Fulton Economic Development and Reentry Center will remove the bars and put out a welcome mat for people returning from prison. It'll provide services that they need all in one place, and we will invite our colleagues to join in this effort that nurtures and houses people, that incubates quadruple bottom line business, that's people, planet, profit, and purpose, that hire people coming home from prison and provide jobs and opportunities that keep people from going to prison in the first place. In a country that savors punishment and depends on prisons economically, it's a big deal to actually close a prison. Brian Fisher knows that better than anyone. But it's an even bigger deal to repurpose it for reentry, to beat swords into plowshares. Now, I know, like me, you may be asking, what exactly is a plowshare? Really? Through in-depth research at Wikipedia, I learned that a plowshare is the cutting edge of the plow, such that turning swords into plowshares could actually be done, and it's cutting edge. Like turning a prison into a reentry center is something that can actually be done, and with your support, we will do it. I need to say one more thing. My late mother got a not entirely welcome glimpse of my future at my graduation from law school 40 years ago, when I was already volunteering in the defense of the Attica brothers. and I was quoting Ho Chi Minh's prison diary. Really, he said, people who come out of prison can build up the country, and when the prison door is open, the real dragon will fly out. So as a graduation gift, she framed a New Yorker cartoon that showed the jury standing to deliver the verdict. Said, "We're all guilty." But over time, as our entire family became engulfed in a life marked by prison visits and collect calls, we came to understand it a little differently. We're all responsible. She and my father threw themselves into helping me raise my children, who were 2 and 6 when their father went to prison. She held them through the disappointment of 10 parole denials. She talked them through the stigma of growing up with a father in prison. She stared down the people in her small village who gossiped about her family, and she welcomed him home when he was released after 25 years. She always thought I was better off without him, but she never said our children were better off without him. And neither did Brian and Rhoda Fisher. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rosalind Hicks, and I'm here to tell you a short story about myself and my life with Osborne. In 2010, I was convicted of selling crack cocaine. I served 2 years in Bedford and Bayview State Prison. This was not my first time. In 1988, I was incarcerated for the same thing and served 12 months. I started using cocaine when I was 17 years old. I loved to sniff, and I loved the lifestyle that selling allowed me to live. The more I sold, the bigger I became. I got hooked on the thrill of the money and the lifestyle. I just could not get enough, and then I did not see how destructive cocaine had become in my life until I got caught again and sent back to prison. Being in jail is not easy, and it's no way to live. I did the program there and started to rethink my life, but mostly I felt isolated and alone. For me, it was almost harder when my daughter and grandkids came to visit me. When they left, I would go into deep depression about where I was and how alone I felt. It came to a point that I had to tell my daughter not to come and visit me anymore because I couldn't take seeing them leave. It would hurt and sadden me. I thought about what my future would be, being that I'm also HIV positive. I came home from prison last year without an idea of what I was going to do. Parole mandated that I do a drug program, and I figured it would be a repeat of what I had already done. I had been sent to the Bronx Parenting Housing Network for housing and met a man by the name of Victor Rivera, who brought me to Osborne. That's when my life changed for the best. Osborne Living Well program offers special substance treatment program for people like me who are HIV positive. The people are not like the regular mandated groups that I went to in the past. My counselor Minerva and Jules, the women group facilitator, helped me with my fight not to slide back into my old life and start using cocaine again. They taught me everyday coping skills, doing one-on-one counseling. I learned to make positive changes in my life. I now take care of my HIV better than I did before, and I'm healthier and happier than I ever thought I could be. Thank you. Thank you so much. I feel so great. The most important thing are my therapeutic and women's group here at Osborne. The group allows me to share with people who understand what I'm going through. We can just go in and dump all our stuff out. And some people don't understand what we go through or what we want to talk about. But the women's group, you can just let everything out. The group has been my rock. Even though I finished the program 2 months ago, I still come every week, and I will keep coming for the support. I can't say enough about the people and the staff at Osborne. They have truly helped me get my life back on track. I have had some trying times, and they were always here for me. Not too long ago, I thought about selling drugs again to help my daughter make co-payments for her prescription medication that she needs to function. Selling drugs is the way I knew how to make money that I thought would help. But I brought my thoughts to Osborne. Minerva and Jules helped me work this out. They helped me change the way I think, and I'm thankful that they are here for me and all women coming home. Because of Minerva and Osborne, I have started training to become a peer educator. I know that by giving back, helping people like myself, I can live a healthy life. I have lost too many years of my life to cocaine and that life, but I'm not too old to make a difference. Thank you, Osborne, for teaching me and reminding me that hope, love, and life are possible. Again, I thank you, Osborne. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. My name is Francis J. I'd like to tell you guys a little bit about my life the past 2 years. When I was 22 years old, my mother was arrested, and I remember that day vividly. I was sitting in class at the College of New Rochelle when my phone started to ring. The call was from my mother's phone, but I figured I'd just call her back after class, so I ignored it. I turned the ringer off and I tried to put it aside, but the phone kept going off. So I finally walked out of class and answered the phone. Instead of my mom, it was my stepfather. He said he was coming to get me from school, that something terrible had happened and I needed to come home. He told me the news on the long drive back to Forest Hills, and I was stunned. I didn't know what to make of it, but surely it was a mistake or a misunderstanding that we could explain, something that we could fix to get my mother back home. But a mistake or not, it was not something we could fix, and my mom could not come home. As I scrambled to try to sort out bail, I realized that none of this was going to be simple. When I finally arranged bond, I was told I needed to turn in my mother's passport. By the time I found it, the court had put an immigration hold on her. Now, no matter what, I couldn't get my mom home to be with us. I didn't know that the day I walked out of class in New Rochelle, that would be my last day there. I am now a full-time parent to my 7-year-old brother, 10-year-old sister, and 19-year-old sister who suffers with Down syndrome. I am now the head of the household, and I mean the head of the household. I do all the laundry, I clean the house, I go to PTA meetings, and I take the kids to and from school, and also doctor's appointments. I deal with all the finances and figure out how to pay bills each month. After 4 months alone trying to figure it out, I finally managed to enroll us on public assistance and food stamps. And it's been a struggle, and that struggle continues each day as I wonder what little thing will break down next. I love my brother and sisters, but I cannot really be the mom. My 7-year-old brother has learned to be more independent than any child should have to be at that age. He microwaves his own food and basically potty trained himself after our mother was arrested. My sister Brianna attends one of the best schools in Queens, but she was held back a grade because she missed so much school last year, and now as she approaches puberty, she's lacking the advice that a mother will give to her daughter. I will do anything for Brianna, but she really needs her mother right now. My 19-year-old sister Francisca has Down syndrome. She does everything she can to be helpful, but sometimes I worry that she's alone too much, and at this point I'm searching for a program that she can visit every day, socialize, and be happy in. I heard about Osborne when I got a call from my siblings to go on a 2-day trip to visit my mother. And I swore it was just another social worker trying to butt into our lives. I was so skeptical, but Miss Archer would not give up. Finally, my mom told me it was okay, that the Osborne was there to help. Albion Prison is almost 400 miles from New York City, and I could never imagine getting my family there to see her. Now, somehow, Miss Archer was on the phone trying to arrange a flight to fly them there to see her graduate from her parenting class, and the kids were so excited. Osborne made it possible for my mom to hold and hug her little girl and little boy. Now Brianna and Tyler get the chance to televisit and bond with my mom in a unique way. It's the closest they can really be right now, since she's so far away and we only visit her in person, or if they send her down to Bedford or Rikers for court. When we do visit my mother, it's all about the family. It's emotional, and we keep each other as strong as we can. We even pray together not to lose hope. And it took a lot of time for me to be able to trust Osborne. I've dealt with ACS, and it was very intense. I didn't know who they really were until after I spoke to my mother. But I really started to trust Osborne last December when Osborne made sure there will be gifts for the kids on Christmas. Then, when we faced a serious crisis, Osborne stepped up the game to help us when our lights were turned off at home. I hadn't paid a light bill because I couldn't pay Con Ed, pay rent, feed my siblings, and keep money on the phone so my mom could call us. When Miss Archer and Miss Tanya heard my story, they got to work immediately. They helped me talk Con Edison down from $1,500 to a $400 payment. But even $400 was too much money for me at the moment. Somehow, Ms. Archer then arranged for Osborne to make a $200 payment to Con Ed and set up a plan for me to pay the rest. Suddenly, after weeks of not talking to my mom, the lights and the phones were back on. My family will forever be so grateful for that. The Osborne also gave me an opportunity to work 2 weeks in the Family Resource Center, making $15 an hour. And through Osborne's connections, I'm now completing an internship where I help create advocacy films about the impact of incarceration around the world. Trust me. Thank you. Trust me, Osborne means what they say, and they do amazing work. There's a chance my mom will be released next October, but I know I have no control over when she comes home. If I had the power, she'll be here with me right now, and I will introduce her to all of you as the strongest mother. She's amazing, and I'm confident that prison will not break or change my mother from being the great person that she truly is. I am 24 years old, and I should be completing college and thinking about my future. Instead, I worry about my brother and sister's future and just trying to survive each day with everything in place. And with all of us talking to our mom as much as possible and making her proud. And as hard as our situation is, I know there are thousands of children like us, but without Osborne in their lives. I'm grateful for the opportunities Osborne has made possible for us and for my mom. Osborne gives us hope and encouragement we need to keep going. Thank you guys very much.
I want to thank my wife for reminding me to bring the tissues. Thank you, Rosalind and Francis, for sharing such moving and inspiring stories. On behalf of all of us at Osborne, we love you and we stand with you. My name is John Valverde, and I'm Osborne's Associate Executive Director for Program Operations. I would like to add my thanks to all of you for being here this morning. I also want to take a moment to share a bit about my personal history and what brought me to Osborne. When I was 20 years old, my girlfriend was raped. In my anger and anguish over what happened to her, I confronted the man who raped her, and I took his life. I served 16 years in prison for that. From the first moment, I knew that what I did was wrong. But it was a much longer process for me to come to terms with it and accept full responsibility for my actions. Osborne was a big part of that journey. Within months of my incarceration at Sing Sing, I met Liz Gaines and was introduced to the Osborne Association. We say it at Osborne that reentry begins the first day a person is incarcerated. Back in 1992, I learned that firsthand. And I graduated from Osborne's Family Works program and became part of the Osborne family. And it set me on a path of responsibility, remorse, and redemption. I went on to achieve my bachelor's and master's degrees, was the first person to take the LSAT in prison and actually be accepted to law school while I was still there. Thank you. I co-founded Hudson Link for Higher Education in Prison, a privately funded college program that still operates there, and I taught for 10 years at the college level. I also met my sister and brother-in-laws, my niece, and my nephews for the first time when siblings brought them to see me in the visiting room. I also lost my father 3 years before my release to a tragic accident. My mother visited me every other week for 16 years. She is here today. And Mom, I want to thank you for never giving up on me. Especially through all the pain I caused you. I work hard every day to be the man that you raised me to be and to make a difference for others. And to my wife, from the first moment we met, you saw me as more than just my past. I want to thank you for accepting me and loving me as I am. And while my father did not live to see me come home, I know he died knowing in his heart that I was already free. This morning, I want to personally thank Brian Fisher for making that gift to my father possible. Through your unwavering support of programs and education, you gave me the chance to make him proud before he died. And you supported my release in 2008. Now my work with Osborne affords me the opportunity each day to make amends for the harm I caused and contribute in ways I never could have from prison. I'm eternally grateful to you. I believe that none of us want to be defined by the worst thing that we've ever done. Perhaps some of you can understand what it is like to be alone in a world that judges you and rejects you. The women, men, children, and families we serve face this every day. We at Osborne stand with them. For our mission at Osborne is bigger than the formerly incarcerated. It is about creating a world in which our default is not revenge, punishment, and judgment that excludes classes of people and their families. It is about the healing of all individuals and communities impacted by trauma and crime, so that all people can see a future for themselves full of hope, dignity, and freedom, and live into that future. Today, I believe you have seen and heard how we do it, and that we mean it. And now I want to invite you to be a part of our Osborne family and mission. I ask for your kind attention and support as I walk you through the pledge card. It is very important that we fill out the cards and keep the noise level down so I can continue to share with you as you write. Will you please do that for me? Great. I'll take that as a yes. Thank you. In front of you is a mug, a pledge card, which is the very first thing in your cup, and a pen. Please raise your hand if you do not have a pen, pledge card, or envelope, and a volunteer will bring one to you. The stories you heard here this morning are far from over, and we'd like to be able to update you as they unfold and share new stories. If you haven't already, please take out the card and the pen and complete the contact information section. Next, this year, to honor the centennial of our founder's vision, I ask you to consider joining the Thomas Mott Osborne Society with a 5-year pledge. Or if you're already a member, to consider increasing or extending your commitment. Multi-year gifts are critical to our financial health and help us in long-term planning and program development. This morning you have heard how Osborne has grown to reach the scope and ambition of our founder's commitment. Instead of just telling you, though, I want to show you 3 examples of what your pledge means to the individuals and communities we work with every day. Let me show you ABLE, our partnership with the New York City Department of Correction, to provide cognitive behavioral therapy and touch the life of every incarcerated young man on Rikers Island.
Draw a picture that represents a current problem that you have with someone, and that's me not being there for my girlfriend when she really, really needs me.
MRT has helped me plan out what I want to do with the next year, 5 years, 10 years. It helped me to help myself and change my life, because in all actuality, I could have been dead if I would have stood on the streets.
Almost half of the kids who come through Rikers will come back within a year of going home. So the goal of the program is to reduce that number significantly.
What we do with this cognitive behavioral therapy is we strive to guide the person toward changing their thinking. And if a person's thinking changed, then they're not coming back here.
Before I got here, I used to act before thinking. Now I know how to control my anger without acting first.
I know for a fact I will not become a president of the United States, but I just want to be remembered in society, not for negativity.
You got to use that as a symbol that this is the direction I want to go in, and you got to use that model to keep you pushing forward toward getting the things you want to accomplish.
It's a convergence of New York City, the Department of Correction, philanthropy, investors, coming together to say that not only can you save money by reducing the number of kids who come back, it's about saving lives.
This is an extraordinary investment in young people on Rikers Island, but we must pair it with services in the community to realize its full promise. Young people coming home from Rikers Island tell us about their fear of gun violence and their need to feel safer in their communities. Join us today as a lamplighter with a $1,000 annual pledge and help us extend the nonviolent conflict resolution work we do on Rikers Island into a community intervention. Help these young people work against gun violence so they can feel safe enough to realize there is a life of hope and promise after incarceration. Second, with a $5,000 annual pledge, torchbearers support that for children, nothing can replace their relationship with their parent by funding a parenting class at Albion Correctional Facility. a class that allows us to connect mothers to their children in New York City through our Family Ties Visiting and Televisiting program. Let me show you how Family Ties reunites children with their mothers.
We do 2 visits a year, taking children to see their mothers who are incarcerated at Albion Correctional Facility, which is the largest New York State prison for women and the farthest away from New York City. Because of the distance, most of the families aren't seeing each other.
When they came to visit me, when I saw them, the first 2 hours I was crying. I couldn't stop crying because I haven't seen Brianna the whole time that I've been arrested. She fills me in about school, about homework, about what's going on at home, and how much we miss each other. Me and Brianna can talk about practically anything.
We all start feeling a little nervous as the end of the visit nears, and we do a lot to try to prepare the inevitable separation.
They tell us about 10 minutes before the children have to leave, and so we have to say our goodbyes and help them with their coats on, and that's hard.
We believe children should always be able to see and touch and climb on the laps of their moms and dads, but as a supplement to it, televisiting is fabulous.
Hi, Princess. Hi, Mommy. It gives me hope that my children are waiting for me at home. And they know that.
Bye,
don't say hi to Steve. I love you, Steve.
I love you too.
I'll talk to you soon, okay?
Okay.
I think anyone watching that clip will recognize the powerful need for Brianna to see and be held by her mom. At Osborne, we know that Jackie's connection to Brianna is just as vital for her reconciliation and her eventual reentry to the community. Third, we know that some of you here today like to fund bricks and mortar, and we have a project that matches Thomas Mott Osborne's revolutionary ambition. Liz shared the wonderful news about Fulton, about our plan to create a community reentry and economic development center in the heart of the Bronx. Now let's have a glimpse at Fulton, the future of our work.
Fulton Correctional Facility is one of the prisons that was closed by the state of New York, and the Osborne Association will repurpose it as a community reentry center.
It will be focused on economic development and job creation, job training, and a place where people can live when they first come home. Fulton really represents the future of all of our work, transforming the system of punishment to a system of reconciliation.
Fulton will be a beacon for hope and opportunity in the Bronx. With a $25,000 gift this year, our beacon donors will underwrite planning meetings and visioning workshops with community leaders, city institutions, service providers, and our neighbors to develop a plan to ensure that Fulton is not just a welcoming reentry center, but a catalyst to creating a safer, healthier, and better place to live for everyone in the community. Lastly, large gifts have an immediate and lasting impact, but we also know the difference that small monthly or individual gifts at any level will make. Osborne monthly sustainers provide freedom and opportunity to women like Rosalind and to a young man like Francis who works every day just to hold his family together. Now, I'll give you a final few moments to fill out your pledge cards at a level and commitment that works for you and your family. Thank you. Please pass your pledge card to your table host or raise your hand for a volunteer who will come and collect it. We recognize that not everyone is in a position to make a pledge, and we ask that you still complete the contact portion of the card. We would be grateful for your feedback about this morning, including how early it is, your commitment to volunteer, or your ideas about how we can better share the story of our work. We also know that some of you may need to discuss a gift or commitment with your spouse or family. Please complete the contact section on the card and be sure to turn it in, and take the business reply envelope we included in the mug, which has much of the pledge information. Take it home, and you can mail that in once you've talked it over at home. Finally, I want to thank each of you for the time, money, and ideas that you commit to those we work with, and for giving me the opportunity to invite you to be part of our family. The heart and soul you experienced today in Rosalind and Francis, in the young men of Abel, and in Jackie and Brianna is the heart and soul Osborne is working to lift up for the world to embrace. Thank you for joining us in this revolutionary work.
I guess I don't get an intro, Mom. Thanks for looking up. I'd like to ask Brian Fisher to come up to the podium. Good, now I don't have to be up here alone. Thank you. When I first met Brian Fisher, he was the superintendent of Sing Sing Correctional Facility. Last month, Brian Fisher retired as the Commissioner of the New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision. He oversaw multiple prison closures. This did not add to his popularity with the communities where the prisons were located, but it made him very popular with us, especially when he gave Osborne one of them. Like most kids who visit their parents in prison, I grew up with a discomfort with corrections because of how the visitors were treated in the prison where my father was. I was made to feel like I wasn't welcome there and that these people didn't want my father to come home. When I was 18 years old, I started going into Sing Sing to work in the Children's Center and to share my experience having a father in prison with the Osborne Association's parenting course. You know, it was like 10 years ago, 5 years ago. It was like crossing into a different world. I had to understand the rules from a very different perspective. He helped me to understand why the rules were the way they were. He didn't enforce things that were unfair. He didn't humiliate families. Rules were the same every time, and when we had problems, he took care of it. They say that children haven't learned to justify unfairness. Most of us, as we grow up, come up with reasons why things have to be the way they are. Brian Fisher has never learned to justify unfairness, and he never defended it. I am sure that he had to do things he didn't want to do and defend things he didn't want to defend, but he didn't say it was fair if it wasn't. In some prisons, when you go in to do the work, it feels like it's us against them, and having someone on the other side who is just as committed as you are makes you feel like you can succeed. We can't do what we do if someone isn't on the other side willing to open the door. I remember that he would come into the visiting room or the school. He would be surrounded, like accosted by the guys. They wanted to talk to him. He knew them and he saw them. One evening when he came into the school and asked the men what would improve our parenting program, they said that it would be great if their wives could be a part of the course. He then told Osborne, gently ordering Osborne, to develop a course for couples, and he arranged for us to start bringing the wives and partners in. When Brian Fisher would come to the graduation or come into the school, all the men knew who he was and loved to see him and talk to him. When he became commissioner, they were so proud. And when he would come back for graduations or events, they would give him a standing ovation, and he deserves it. In the face of multiple budget cuts and pressure to cut visiting, to cut family reunions, to cut programs, he wouldn't do it. He was the first superintendent I knew who really wanted formerly incarcerated people to come in, to show the men that they could be successful. You are a special man. You changed how many of us do this work and feel about people in corrections,
and you provided a platform so that a lot of our colleagues in corrections began to see us as partners and not as invaders. 85 years after Thomas Mott Osborne served as warden of Sing Sing, Brian Fisher became its superintendent. The Thomas Mott Osborne Spirit Medal is awarded to people who exemplify the qualities of Osborne's founder. Mr. Osborne said that it is liberty alone that fits a man for liberty. He saw the potential in the men in his charge, and he believed that under the right conditions, they would transform their lives and never return to prison. I honestly think, I wrote this part, that there has never been anyone who more exemplifies these qualities, and I am so honored to be able to give you this medal. If someone had told me that I might be standing up here one day presenting an award to the former prison warden and commissioner of the New York State Department of Corrections, I would have called them crazy. But today I feel incredibly honored and privileged to do so. Congratulations. Yes, there's a standing ovation. I'm leaving you the box, okay? Actually, I'll give it to Rhoda.
Sit down. Thank you very much. I want to thank the Osborne Association for this honor. And having worked with them for many, many years, I've had the opportunity to see how many men and women, both inside and outside the prison, have been helped by them. I think that when I first walked into Sing Sing 13 years ago, I must have had the same thoughts that Thomas Mott Osborne did way back when he went there. Prisons should be places where men and women can learn new skills and realize what they can accomplish if given a little help. I tried to provide the setting where staff would see the individual. Programs like those sponsored by Osborne make it easier. Institutions, they're designed to deal with groups of people. The best programs in the world are those that deal directly with individuals. My role, both as superintendent and then as commissioner, was to get staff to see people as individuals, not prisoners. One-to-one personal interaction is far more productive than all the rules and policies we can create. Too often, the criminal justice system sets off dealing with the individual and the crime he or she commits, but then designates them into a group and loses the individuality. When you see the individual, you also see that he or she is a parent, a husband, a wife, son, or daughter. In other words, part of a family. I am proud that I supported programs sponsored by Osborne, like parenting, the children's centers, and most recently, the video visiting. As previously mentioned, it's time for all of us to understand the impact and the problems encountered by children of incarcerated parents. When one person goes to prison, the entire family is impacted. I really do believe that this is something that I can't help but believe that there's fate involved in this, my even being here tonight. They say that life is often a series of circles of fate, connected by time. In the late 1950s, 60s, the Edgecombe Correctional Facility was a drug treatment facility, and I was assistant director there. Years later, when I became commissioner, I converted the prison back to a drug treatment facility for parolees on the street who needed a little time out, so they would not go back to prison for a long time. I ran the Queensboro Correction Facility in the 80s, turning it into a prison, then a work release facility, and then as commissioner, into a transitional facility. Now comes Fulton, full circle. It was in Fulton in 1975 that I actually transferred into the Department of Corrections. It was a small prison, then a work release facility, and then as commissioner, I closed it. Now, I did work with the legislature to help transfer the site from the state to Osborne. Earlier, Liz mentioned the words plowshares and swords. I am not kidding you. When I was 13 years old, at my bar mitzvah, I used those words as part of the service. Tell me it's not fate. It's just not real. Each of us are called upon to do something for somebody else. I'd like to think in a small way I answered that call much the way Thomas Mott Osborne did. My work, and clearly his work, is not complete. There's always more to do, and we ask that each of you support us as we move forward. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Daniel Beatty, and as a writer and performer, it is part of my passion and my purpose to use my art to help highlight the issues facing children of incarcerated parents. I myself am a child of an incarcerated parent, and so it is my honor to be with you all this morning very briefly to celebrate the powerful work that the Osborne Association is doing, and our honoree this morning, Mr. Fisher. Thank you. As a boy, I shared a game with my father. We played it every morning till I was 3. He would knock on my door, and I'd pretend to be asleep till he got right next to the bed. Then I would get up and jump into his arms. Good morning, Papa. And my papa, he would tell me that he loved me. We shared a game, knock. Until that day when the knock never came. My mama takes me on a ride past cornfields on this never-ending highway till we reach a place of high, rusty gates. A confused little boy entered the building carried in my mama's arms. Knock. We reach a room of windows and brown faces. Behind one of the windows sits my father. I jump out of my mama's arms and run joyously towards my papa's, only to be confronted by this window. I knock, trying to break through the glass, trying to get to my father. I knock as my mama pulls me away before my papa even says a word. And for years, he has never said a word. And so years later, I write these words with a little boy in me who still awaits his papa's knock. Papa, come home, because I miss you. Miss you waking me up in the mornings and telling me you love me. Papa, come home, since things I don't know, and I thought maybe you could teach me how to shave, how to dribble a ball, how to talk to a lady, how to walk like a man. Papa, come home, because I decided a while back I want to be just like you, but I'm forgetting who you are. And years later, a little boy cries, and so I write these words, and I try to heal, and I try to father myself, and I dream up a father who says the words my father did not. Dear son, I'm sorry I never came home. For every lesson I failed to teach, hear these words. Shave in one direction with strong, deliberate strokes to avoid irritation. Dribble the page with the brilliance of your ballpoint pen. Walk like a god, and your goddess will come to you. No longer will I be there to knock on your doors. You must learn to knock for yourself. Knock down doors of racism and poverty that I could not. Knock on doors of opportunity for the lost brilliance of the black men who crowd these cells. Knock with diligence for the sake of your children. Knock for me, for as long as you are free, these prison gates cannot contain my spirit. The best of me still lives in you. Knock with the knowledge that you are my son, but you are not my choices. Yes, we are our father's sons and daughters, but we are not their choices. For despite their absences, we are still here, still alive, still breathing, with the power to change this world, one little boy and girl at a time. Knock. Who's there? We are. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I've been in many situations where people would come and say that they would hate to follow Reverend Alfonso Wyatt. I think I know what they feel like now. Daniel is Yale trained. He's an Obie Award-winning actor. He has done much around this country to elevate the understanding of what it means to be a son to be a son of with a father that's incarcerated, and I thank you for using your art, your gifting, and your talent to keep issues present in our minds. Now, the first person you met, she didn't say who she was, but she is the daughter. Amani is the daughter of Liz Gaines. Yes, the one that bestowed the medal. And as I get ready to move you from this place, that knock knock and the door that we use as a symbol of lighting the way, that light that's behind the door, each one of you are part of that light. Each one of you are part of the ones that open doors for people who are coming home, for people who are looking for a second chance. Your gifts, your time, talent, and treasure is so much appreciated. In my tradition, we say, to whom much is given, much is required. We want to thank you for giving of your time to be here this early morning, to be in such an edifice that is accustomed to having servants come. You are earth angels. And if I could sing that song, I would. But we're going to clear the house, but it won't be because of my singing. If you didn't get a chance to talk to somebody at your table, if you didn't get a chance to just celebrate people who come together and they know that the whole can be greater than the sum of its parts. Beloved, thank you so much.